of flying. We're not doing much of that at the moment because, of course, we are severely restricted as to the countries that we can visit. But as our vaccination rates increase and our third wave subsides, more and more countries are starting to allow leisure travel from South Africa. Israel is opening up to us later this month, Saudi Arabia and Canada as well. But the United Kingdom keeps us still on the red list, barring you entirely if you are not a British citizen or if you don't have resident status. But even if you do have resident status in the UK and you fly from South Africa, you're forced to spend 10 days quarantined on arrival in the UK, regardless of your vaccine or test status. The so-called traffic light system is coming under a lot of pressure, and there are signs it might be soon reviewed. Let's discuss this now with our London correspondent, Olly Barratt. Hi there, Olly. So, first of all, just talk us through the problems with the green, amber, red system. It's not just South Africa that has an issue, is it?
Lots of countries say they're in the wrong part of the list, be that the red section or the amber section. Many countries believe they should be on green when they are not, given the prevalence of COVID-19 in their country. On the other side of it, here in the UK, many travellers say it's just incredibly complicated, the testing regime that is required, the mandatory hotel quarantine if you're coming back from a red list country, it all adds extra cost. And travellers have also been saying for some time that they find the unpredictability of it all very difficult. You can go on holiday to a country that's in the amber list, for example, and worry that when you're there it could go red and you have to either race home or then enter mandatory hotel quarantine on return. So for some time, many in the travel industry, but also travellers, have been saying all of this needs to be simplified. It's much too complicated, especially, Sally, where we're now in an environment with COVID-19 here in the UK, where life is basically back to normal. I mean, there are masks around in some places, but all businesses, especially in England, are reopened. There are no limits on capacity. So many people say, if that is the right way to go at this point in the COVID-19 pandemic, then why aren't we doing more to simplify international travel?
Yeah, and I'm wondering how it might change, if it does indeed change. For example, in Israel, the rules are actually quite simple. You have to be fully jabbed, you have to have an antibody test to show you've got the antibodies, and you've got to have a negative PCR test in hand, and then you're basically free to enter. Is that something that the UK might be considering?
It looks like we're heading in that type of direction, but I think it's fair to say the government is still trying to work out exactly what it wants to do and which direction it wants to go in. There's been some reporting over the last day or so that we're coming up to October the 1st, when we have a formal review of the UK international travel system, whether what the UK government might be considering is scrapping green and amber, keeping the red list of countries that people are advised not to travel to, and that if they come back from, they have to go into that mandatory hotel quarantine. But green and amber essentially become the same. Everywhere else is okay if you have been vaccinated. Now, that sounds simple, but what about testing? How much of that regime is going to stay in place? What does it mean exactly for people who are vaccinated with one dose, or people who have not yet been vaccinated at all but might be able to prove that they have a negative COVID status at the time? It's also being reported that the UK is considering extending that status, if you like, of that top tier of travel that can go ahead, to countries with similar vaccination rates. Well, that's a difficult one as well, because at the moment the UK, for example, its adult population is 80.4% vaccinated. Now, you can find some comparable countries like that around the world. Some of them are in Europe, but even looking at the United States, I'm not sure that would get on the list under that criteria, because of the large chunks of population there that are unvaccinated. There are large swathes of Africa where that simply wouldn't be the case either. So many will say that this is discriminatory when it comes to international travel, if that's the kind of regime that the UK is moving towards, which is part of the reason why I think it's fair to say, Sally, that the decisions haven't been made yet. The UK government is racking its brains trying to work out a system that works, a system that's fair, and also a system that appears to be safe to people with regards to trying to do things like keep out new strains of COVID-19, for example.
Yeah, so in other words, we probably will only hear the beginning of October, but from what you're saying, it could be that while amber and green are changed, the red list stays. At the moment, I think there are over 60 countries on that red list with South Africa. We know that there's a huge amount of lobbying coming from South African tourism to get us off that red list. Do you think there are signs that South Africa might be moving off that red list soon? Any signs at all?
Well, you can look at the South African COVID-19 data, Sally, and there are various parts of that on which you would say South Africa should be on the amber or the green list. Now, the UK would say there are lots of different factors that go into this. It can sometimes boil down to neighbouring countries around the particular country that we are talking to and the strength of the data in those nations. So it's a complicated picture, but it's not just the South African travel industry that's been lobbying for South Africa to be moved up the list to amber or green. There are plenty of people here in the UK travel industry on this side of things who rely on that market, on that route between the UK and South Africa, which is traditionally so popular and so busy and so important to both countries' economies. There are many thousands of people here in the UK who also want to see that route opened up, and I think we have to say there's a chance that South Africa could move on to this or out of the red list at some point in the not too distant future. At the same time, just be aware that the UK population is still quite cautious according to the polling when it comes to international travel. It does want the government to be strict on countries where it feels there might be dangerous strains, for example, spreading, and we've had all that concern about the beta variant but also the delta variant as well. So it's a complicated picture, and I wish I could give you more clarity or a date when things might change. The UK government set itself targets throughout this period. It said we'll review every 3 weeks, we'll make a decision here, we'll make a decision there. Sometimes they've thrown those timetables out the window and acted when they've felt they needed to do so rapidly. So it's still, with regards to South Africa, but also with regards to the entire travel programme and system, it's deeply unpredictable.
Thank you very much. Olly Barratt coming to us live from London this evening.